Hi class, my name is Sheela and I'm going to introduce Hindi to you, which is my language um, that I have chosen for my LOT presentation. It is the national language of India and is taught in all schools. So all citizens of India know the language, reading and writing, and most of them have done it up to grade 10 if they have stayed in the country. Before we zoom in on Hindi in particular, let's have a look at the languages that are spoken in the world. Most of the citizens of the world speak at least two languages, and we find that the number of Chinese or Mandarin speaking people is the highest. There's followed not closely, but Spanish and English are quite tied together and come second place. Hindi follows in third place, which makes it imperative for all of us to be aware um, of Hindi and to acknowledge it as a foreign language that migrants come or bring with them when they move into a country like the United States. When we look at the right side, this is a map of India, and the one that's highlighted in royal blue is represents the states that speak Hindi. The other states are speak different languages, and this is not considering the dialects. We find that Hindi is by far spoken across all of North India. The rest of India, even though they do not speak Hindi, they are required to have Hindi in their schools and they must graduate with a pass in Hindi because the government uses Hindi in a lot of its official letters and court um, documents. So the knowledge of Hindi is required by all um, Indian nationals. So when Indians migrate to this country, they a lot of them bring Hindi along with them, and a lot of the kids, when they come here and come into our schools, they have been exposed to Hindi and they have been learning Hindi, which is their L1, and they're learning English here. Um, so we need to know what Hindi sounds like, what are the nuances, and what are the language structures and grammar that Hindi follows. This is and I give us an idea about where Hindi is spoken, uh, and it's a snapshot of the United States. We'll find that migrants, when they come here, if they're coming from the Indian subcontinent, they're scattered all over, and Hindi is by far the most common language spoken. Um, Urdu is also spoken, but Urdu and Hindi follow the similar structure. So once we know the grammar structure and the sentence structure of Hindi, it is the same for Urdu. Urdu follows different vocabulary, but the nuances of the language are still the same. If we look at the United States, according to the American Census Bureau, um, the number of Hindi-speaking persons in the United States in 2011 above the age of 5 is 648,963, which is not a huge percentage when we consider the total number of people who spoke at least one language apart from English in their homes was a 60.5 mil. But in isolation, 648,000 or 650,000 is a substantial amount. When we look at Houston or we look at Texas, a lot of the migrants here are Hindi speaking, and according to the PIMS data that's released by TEA for the academic year of 2015-2016, the total number of Hindi speaking students from grade 1 to 12 was 2,242, which is not something we can put under the carpet, although it does not um, form a huge percentage when we consider the total number of students who are speaking a different language other than English, which is 4.9 mil. But 2,242 is a substantial number, and schools like the Bel Air High School actually have Hindi in their curriculum because of the high number of students. When we look at the history of Hindi, the map of India showed us the regions that the Muslim conquerors occupied and brought along with them music, architecture, food, um, and all these influenced linguistics and language. The language that existed at that time was Sanskrit, which was a very difficult language for the common man. Urdu came and kind of married with Sanskrit and gave birth to a new language, Hindi, which became a much easier form for the common man to speak, to read, and to write. The Hindi and Sanskrit actually follow the same script. Sanskrit was the official language of scriptures and official documents from the 4th to the 5th century, but the common man found it extremely difficult to read, to comprehend, to use in their everyday language, and so they would be using their own dialects for conversation. But it was became challenging when they were moving from place to place. So either they had to know the other dialect, there was no common language binding them. When Urdu and Sanskrit joined hands, they formed a simpler language called Hindi, which still used the Devanagari script, which was being used by Sanskrit. The Devanagari script is this form and consists of 13 vowels, which are written on top, and 36 consonants, which are all written at the bottom. The vowels that we have on top are all like an a, e, u. So they follow similar sounds, but they're slightly different from one another, and hence they're all written together. The consonants start with the g, k, g, g, and you'll find that the second one is actually similar to the first, except that it has a more esophagus kind of, it has a lot of throw in the voice and a lot of power that comes along with it. There's a lot of, like the bottom of the throat is used to say the k as opposed to the k, which is more like from the mouth itself. Phonology, Hindi is a very easy language to read. It's written in the form that it's said, and hence it is also read in that same form. So if we see a p, you will say p. If you see the alphabet p, the p is written. So because of this, the ELL students, when they come here and they see an A and they see the various forms that A is pronounced depending on the word, they're extremely confused and they don't know how to read it. That's something we should be cognizant of. A couple of challenges that I've written down here. This in no way is it's just a snapshot. It does not encompass all of it. Hindi ELL students have challenges with words that are similar sounding, like sad, said, and even worse when it comes to par, pear, paw. Extremely similar sounding, very different meanings, and to write it down, reference to context, it requires a lot of persistence and a lot of explanations and a lot of vocab cards. Another unique point is that Hindi does not have the consonant W, so W does not exist, and the verb is often replaced by the Hindi ELL by a V, because there's a lot of confusion in English because wet and vet have completely different meanings. So these students have to be told how it is said and maybe get them to purse their lips or put their fingers before their lips to know what they're saying and why they're saying and how they have to say when they want to mean something. The sound also does not exist in Hindi, and it's often replaced by the Hindi ELL student by a t or a t, because the is not used. The same thing as s, so there's no s, or like chess or cluster. They're also not used to saying it with the z sound, so they're likely to say either a sh, or they're likely to use a s with a very slight sound, because there are 4 types of sh but there is no s. The s is like a sap, is like a very hissing kind of sound. There's no like variations of s at all. Hindi words also do not have clusters of consonants in the beginning of words. So students from the Hindi speaking background will have difficulty saying school. They will say is school, straight. They will say is straight, film instead of film. They have problems with saying just the consonants. Sentence structure is also extremely challenging for these kids because Hindi uses subject, object, verb, whereas in the English language, it's a subject, verb, object. For example, in Hindi, the sentence you would say would directly translate as Leela shop going to, whereas in English it is Leela is going to the shop. So you see that the subject and verb, the subject, verb, object, and subject, object, verb is different. Similarly, preposition in Hindi, the preposition actually comes after the noun or pronoun instead of before the noun or pronoun. So in Hindi, you would say a sentence that would translate as everybody table on, sit, food, eat, as opposed to everybody sat at the table to eat. Frequent practice and awareness has to be highlighted to these students, and doing it again and again will help them understand. In Hindi, it's unique that there are no suffixes like an ed or an eng that are used to change from past, present, or future tense. There is morphology in Hindi, but it's used to form complex words from simple words, such as a sun and rise gives rise to sunrise, or a sun and set gives a sunset. So distant and language forms a word called distant language, which is used for a telephone. Hasna is to laugh, and hasi is laughing. There is another very unique factor that Hindi vocabulary is such that all nouns have been given a gender, and the sentence must follow the gender of the noun. So the adjective follows the gender of the noun. So this sentence here would be like देखो वो पीली गाड़ी जा रही है, which translates as the yellow car is going, and the adjective yellow is pili, whereas it can be pila if you had like a pen, which is a masculine gender. So you have pila kalam. So the sentence would be tum pila kalam le lo. It's like take the yellow pen. So the same word yellow is being used as pili and pila depending upon the gender of the noun. The recommendations I would have for non-Hindi speaking ELL teachers is, first of all, to be extremely patient, to be aware of the culture. They may not look you in the eye. They may not want to say anything to you, especially if they have a doubt because they feel that you might be offended because they are trying to ask you questions and maybe they're doubting what you know. So be encouraging. Be aware of the Hindi sentence structure and provide enough practice. And have fun with it. Bye.